Hey guys, good morning. I hope you guys are having a great Sunday and a great weekend wherever you guys are. I'm in LA or a little outside of LA, and supposedly we're supposed to be getting a hurricane today. It looks like it dropped down. I feel like literally I'm turning into my mom who always talks about the weather, but I feel like it's dropped down. I think my husband told me to I don't know what any of this means. A one, it was yellow yesterday and now it's not. I think we're just gonna get maybe rain, hopefully. Fingers crossed. I know hurricanes are devastating. I've been seeing it all over TikTok and stuff. I know they're very devastating, especially to people in the South, in Florida, that get hit by them or affected, or Louisiana, all those states down there. Texas. So I'm hoping Hurricane Hillary passes and everyone who does get affected by it stays safe. It looks like it's tempering off, hopefully. But yeah, we kind of had preparation. I actually took all the clothes down back there because we have leaks in our house. Another reason why, you guys know, I rented for so long, and I was shamed for renting for my houses. Friends, people on the internet, oh my God, will you still rent? And it's like, there's so many more expenses and problems with being a homeowner. Obviously, it's a great investment. Obviously, real estate goes up. So I'm not saying don't buy, but me as a single person for most of my life, I don't think I could have operated my household and held my sanity together, because there's always stuff happening. There's leaks and there's fixes, and then there's just a lot of stuff with owning a house. And again, I'm grateful. My husband and I bought this house together. We had basically all our savings put together for this house, and just there's a lot of maintenance, and there's leaks in the house. There always leaks right there. So I kind of moved. That's usually where I keep my clothes for my podcast. So I've really struggled. If I'm being 100% honest, I've really struggled this summer. There is a lot of guilt that I feel. There's a lot of just guilt and shame that I feel that I had a part in somehow traumatizing people, minors that were involved, because of my work as a sex worker that I put out online. I just started therapy. I talked about this. I don't know what, maybe I talked about this in a video. I can't remember where I talked about this, but I just talked about this. And, I started therapy because I felt a lot of things. One, I felt guilt, not being able to get pregnant. I felt guilt about, my work as a sex worker, and now how it was aiding predatory behavior, criminal behavior. That because of these images that I put out and produced as an adult, as a sex worker, have now traumatized children. Of course, allegedly unsolicited to minors. The only confirmation I did get was from Johnny Silvestri posting them, Colleen sending me an apology after apologizing for partaking in those conversations. I would also just assume that she was just talking about those conversations with Johnny, because they were very clearly from her friend did the thing. She admits to it. And there was a lot of issue I took with that. There was a lot of guilt I felt with that, because once again, my nudes appeared to be unsolicited to this guy who worked for her, Johnny, who was an adult but looked like he didn't ask for them. It's a huge issue. Sending any sort of pornographic images to minors is a crime. It's illegal. I of course believe Adam, but right now it's alleged, because there's no, he didn't release photo statements for whatever reason. Maybe he doesn't have them. There was a long time. I don't know. And there's a lot. This is all a lot. This is all a lot. For, again, my heart goes out to Adam. I've sent him a private email. He knows. I still have him blocked. There's a reason him and I don't communicate, and that has nothing to do with Colleen at all. It's, obviously he's made a lot of videos about me and my family and stuff like that that I can't see, that it's just hard for me to see. And that goes for a lot of people. There's a lot of videos out there about me that's just hard for me to see. People have every right to make videos about me. They have every right to have an opinion about me. And apparently a lot of people can just make stuff up too. And I at this point, it's just part of the the territory, but this is the stuff that he has confirmed, Adam, you know, is very, very apparent that it was a disgusting behavior. I don't think any grown person, I'm going to reiterate, I don't think any adult, any grown person of any age should be hanging out, going to lunch with a minor. I think it is manipulative. A lot of people throw around the word grooming, and there's something wrong with that person, someone in their 30s going and having these conversations. It's more than just inappropriate conversations. Like there's something there's something unwell about that person, unwell about that dynamic, and I don't support that at all. So again, aside from my photos being involved allegedly between Adam and Colleen, like there are clear behavioral patterns that are just like absolutely disgusting. You know, the tampering of evidence of, you know, her live, saying that like he asked for them when she initiated, all of that stuff is out there and it's proven. And I, of course, stand with Adam on that. So regardless, I don't say, by the way, I don't say that like I don't, you know, me and Adam don't converse, because I'm not trying to like any sort of thing about his character. Again, like, you know, I guess he'd be considered like drama channel, news channel, I don't know, podcast, entertainment channel, something, you know, where he just gossips about people, like public figures. Again, it's totally fine. I have a podcast where I talk about public figures, you know. So I say that more to just maybe show how unbiased I am in this, where I think in the past would be like, ugh, like I don't want to hear anything about Adam McIntyre, to like I fully support and stand by him in this situation, because I think it's absolutely disgusting. It's something that like I go to bed crying about. I have gone to bed crying about this summer. Like it actually, like how I didn't see this, how I didn't, you know, all of this stuff, you know. And I also have to clarify really quick, and then I'm going to get to the Swoop video. I'm so sorry. I was really just going to make this short. I also have to clarify really quick, because I think I heard Adam saying this in a video where I still went ahead and filmed a podcast, the last podcast episode with Colleen after all this stuff came out. I like went to go look at the date. I think it was like June 5th, because I was like looking at all this. I think June 5th is when we filmed the last one. I want to say those initial videos came out June 2nd, June 3rd. You could correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know the person who came out that first video saying like, you know, I don't know, whatever the video was, that like, it was something like I lied, or it was something that like, the initial video that started all this, I don't know the person's name. Basically like I lied on Colleen's behalf, or this was happening, or behind the scenes, something that like kind of made it look like, or confirmed that Colleen was like on the attack of Adam. Adam made the video like I was right about Colleen. I believe that was June 3rd. And then we filmed our podcast. It was a Monday. It was like June 5th or something. And I wrote this to Adam. I thought I clarified it in the email, and if I'm not, I'm just going to clarify this publicly. You know, I had no idea. I really, really do try to stay offline as much as I can. I read comments that my husband monitors. So like I'll rarely go on Twitter because he doesn't moderate those comments, but on my YouTube channels, they are moderated for my own mental health on my own channels. Like I said, on anyone else's channels, they can say whatever, and they do say whatever. I go on podcasts, I go on this, you know, people can say whatever they want about me. But in my socials, I do try to moderate, because I like to read my comments. I don't have a moderator on TikTok. They're relatively nice on TikTok to me. And I don't have a moderator on Instagram. They're relatively nice to me there as well. But YouTube, I do. So, but I can't Google myself anymore on YouTube. I used to, like, even to type in my own channel, like Blonde Sundell 4MJ, like it just comes up, and like titles would trigger me. There was something, oh my God, just recently I was so unaware of it at the time. Ugh, I don't know what it was, but titles would just like trigger me. So I can't look at anything about myself, much less about someone else. And I said this time and time again, like, you know, Colleen and I were like surface level friends before I became a mom. And I mean that like we maybe hung out like a few times to film videos. I always like got along with her. I always thought of her as like this wholesome person. I've always said this. I didn't know much about her character. I didn't know like her Miranda character. I didn't know much about like her really. We never hung out on like extended periods of time for me to think anything of her, bad or good. And I wouldn't think that she would think that of me either, because we just never hung out that extended period of time. So once again, the shock of finding all this out is like very, very shocking, and like probably definitely the most twisted like events I've ever had with someone that I was acquainted with on YouTube ever. Like of all the shocking turns and twists my life has taken as a social media influencer, like this was the most shocking to me. Like one, I never thought of her as this way, like having an ill opinion of me at all. The body shaming, all this stuff like that. I was just like, never would have thought, much less her like going in and taking my content and sending like unsolicited nudes, like, which by the way, once again, Colleen is very much in the wrong in this situation for a number of reasons, like the power dynamic. You know, she is the entertainer and there's these fans that like look up to her and, as Johnny says, like wants to seem cool or whatever. So I do, there's that. But I have to make this video. Oh, there's just so much. You know, we were going to talk about this on the podcast. We film Mondays and Wednesdays to air Tuesdays and Thursdays. So tomorrow was like a hot topic sort of things. And we were going to talk about the Swoop video. And, oh, just one more time to clarify. So that last episode we filmed, like I did not see anything at all. And even when I started seeing stuff after, because we were supposed to film again, and I'm like, okay, like I started seeing stuff and I was like, I kept putting a pause, right? You know, at first I was like, okay, like, you know, like again, a week later when I started seeing more and more stuff come out, I'm like, okay, let me, like, my first reaction as an influencer, as someone who's gone through it, is like, you know, and I'm just being honest about this, like, you know, my first reaction is like, okay, there's this like hate mob right now, like it can't be that serious. Like, again, completely unaware of any of the allegations. I wasn't aware of Adam's original video. I don't know when it was posted, 2020, 2018. I'm not sure when his original one was posted or the follow-up. I'm just like figuring all this out now. I saw something that Colleen posted a video May 2020. I'm doing, you know, I'm just in my own world doing OF, like I'm not even on like YouTube like that. So completely in my own world. If you know summer 2020, you know. But so I'm just like unaware of all of this, like truly, like, you know, to a fault. When I started my podcast with Colleen, you know, I was very honest with her. And say like, hey, just so you know, like I have a Reddit that hates me, that really tries to destroy anything I try to do, and I'm anything, and sometimes they succeed and sometimes they don't, and I'm just letting you know. So it's very upfront, to like let her know, as I am with everybody, by the way, every podcast, every collaborator. And now I try not to, because I try not to just put that bad energy out there. But I think when you're going into business with someone like a podcast, right, we did all the expenses up front, but I still wanted her to know, like, hey, like, you know, just be prepared because this happens, you know. There's a lot of hate about me, and I'm not all of it is unwarranted. Some of it is, obviously there's the extremes, but not all. So I just, you know, I try to tell everybody up front, everyone I work with, like I said, especially going into business with someone. Again, we upfronted all the costs for like obviously the sets and everything, which is, you know, I took that on. That's fine. And I thought maybe like with, I did, at the time, I didn't have any like sort of knowledge with podcasting, like doing my own. My first individual podcast was with a podcast company, but that was in 2019. So, and I had a manager at the time, so I didn't know. So I thought, oh, well, maybe use like her podcasting company. And initially she was like, yeah. And then when I told her that, I guess she told them and they were like uncomfortable with it. So we ended up not, as you guys know, we didn't have any like sponsorships for the podcast or stuff like that. So yeah, basically I thought like, you know, I'll like set up the costs and set up the set and stuff, and like she'll take care of that end. And it just didn't work out, and that's fine. And I was like, okay, well, you know, I get that because I work with a lot of companies and I do have to tell them up front, you know, this sort of thing happens. Again, some companies are okay with it and a lot of companies aren't. And again, that's just something I have to deal with. That's something that comes along with my past, you know what I mean? It is what it is, right? You just keep pushing forward. We do our own podcast now. We just post on YouTube. That's it. Whatever. So this is like a whole long thing. So I was very upfront. This is what it says about me, this whatever. And so like, again, I was blindsided by all this because like, she'd be like, yeah, I have a lot of hate and a lot of this. And I'm like, why? Like, you seem unproblematic. And like, truly, I always thought that about her. And it was always like, there was like two things she would mention, but like, I didn't know like this part at all. And of course, like not to the extent. And once again, to go back, like, I'm an influencer. I've dealt with these people. So I'm just like, okay, I know there are stuff that has been completely made up. Like I said, there's stuff that's completely warranted, and then there's stuff completely made up about just a lot of things, and people's opinions too. People calling my daughter a prop, or, there's lies saying I've shown my daughter in her diaper, which I never have, so there's in my head, I'm like, okay, people can twist things, and then it runs as facts, and, and it becomes exaggerated. So I didn't know. I didn't get the severity of this situation. I didn't grasp it. And anyone who knows me knows I've talked about at length that I do not support any adult talking to a minor ever. Like, we just talked about this on my Dr. Drew podcast. There's a difference of being, of course, friendly and cordial. Maybe you're working with someone. There's times obviously when you can be friendly, but I think anyone who's like friends or hangs out or invites minors to their party, even if they're 17, I've been an advocate on this on so many levels. I was part of a group that totally was fine with a 17-year-old dating, someone in their 20s. And I was like, no, I've talked about the story time and time again when, there was an influencer who was 17 that was part of this group and came to the house. And I was like, I don't feel comfortable with a 17-year-old being up in my apartment. Like, there's just so many things, much less a 14-year-old, Adam McIntyre. Like, I can't even fathom, like, meet up with us and the whole thing. Like, there's so much to it. There's so much to this story that I physically can't even stomach, can't even take. So that all was happening. I'm trying to figure all this out. I'm trying to figure out like what. And again, me talking to Colleen at the time, I was just like, I didn't know the full situation. I also don't want anyone to ever like hurt themselves or something like that. So I'm just trying to figure it all out and like how to like cut this off, right? This thing that we have, because, after a while I was like, okay, let's plan another podcast. Let's do another podcast. I'm just like, okay, that's clearly not going to happen. How do I do this? And, again, trying to figure out like all the like the facts the best that I could that was out there. And again, pretty quickly I did, when I saw this information coming out, period, the stuff with quickly, it didn't take me long, but quickly I was like, this is something I can't support. Like, I can, forgive a lot of things in the past for being stupid, whatever. But it's like when you're a grown person in their 30s, you just have a child, you're still participating in this. Like, there's okay, you know what I mean? So it was a lot to take in. And I did make my video after Johnny tweeted those pictures. So that brings me to what I wanted to speak about today. And this is meant to be short and concise to the point, because this is another reason why Swoop in her video a lot talks about like her and her team, like what they've come to the concluded. And I think that's like a really like important part to talking about sensitive situations. So I originally was like, I'm going to talk about this on the podcast because I have a producer, Oscar, who's very, very articulate. He kind of presents all these sides to me because I'm very emotional. I have a personality disorder. I react very aggressively, where I have to like take a minute, especially when I saw the Swoop video, I had to take a minute. I think I saw it Thursday when it came out. I was driving back, and so I had to like take a minute. I followed Swoop, and then, I also have this thing where I feel to anyone, to Adam in this situation, to, Swoop, to anyone who does like videos about public figures or, mishaps or missteps or whatever, I never ever want it to come across as I'm like befriending someone or on someone's side. It's like, oh, well, they just, to make it seem like I want them to talk nice about me. There's been a few people who I genuinely like have reached out to in the past when I used to get like a ton of hate that I thought were pretty fair. Paige Christie comes to mind, where she's like, Trisha's bad, but also like, this isn't right, where they kind of, I wouldn't say defend me, but just not show all sides, because there are times I'm in the wrong and there are times when it's like kind of balance sided with something that goes down and people only like to show me like down here and whatever. So sometimes I appreciate that. There's another one named Mish that I reached out to, but again, I never want to like really go there because I don't want to ever. I've had friendships before with channels like this, and then it gets twisted around that like I'm trying to like use them. So I'm very like careful and sensitive now that I'm like, that's because that's never been my intention. I've been friends. There was a drama channel back in the day. I don't know what happened to him. I hope he's okay. I'm going on a tangent here, but that I befriended because this was 2012 or something. I just befriended. I came to a meetup in New York. And, but then they come to LA, and if I'm just not a person that hangs out in general. If I didn't want to hang out, then they turn. And I've had that with other people. They just turn, and it's like, okay, like I'm just, straight up, I'm just not a good friend, period. I like to isolate in my house. Like I don't hang out ever. Even with people like I consider friends. I mean, there was like a couple of years, I guess in my early 20s, where I had like a friend group that I hang out. But I'm really just not a hangout kind of person, especially if it's like, I don't know, I've never been that way, especially now that I'm a mom, I really don't hang out with people, but I never was. And like, yeah, maybe I'm just like not a good friend, hence why I don't keep friends. Like maybe I'm not a great friend in the sense like I don't reach out that much. Like that's a whole other thing. But I don't try to befriend people for that reason, especially people who make videos about me, because I just don't want it. I know people flip and I don't want it to feel, and I get my feelings hurt too. You know what I mean? Like I befriended, I guess you call them drama channels in the past where I'm like, they're just fun and I like them and they're a good time, because let's be real, like drama channels are entertaining. A lot of the hosts are entertaining people. It's why people watch them. But, I get my feelings hurt. Then I'm like, oh, I thought we were cool. Like you came to my house. Like I thought we were like, kind of like you knew me, but now you're like painting this picture of me as this monster. Anyways, that's a whole other thing. So I do think Swoop is as far as like, I don't consider her drama channels are obviously very well produced, and like she does obviously have like a team of researchers and editors. She's very calm, like very calm. I see even when she like it gets like triggered about the DV and stuff, that the victim shaming with that, there's triggers people have, and you can tell when someone's been traumatized, and she does a very good job of like composing herself. And that's a whole other thing. And that the Swoop video, I could have a full reaction to, and I think we will still talk about on the podcast, but I think it does help me to have a producer there to kind of like rein me in, I guess, because right now my emotions are all over the place, as you could tell. But bottom line is this, it took me a couple of days to like kind of like figure all this out again, because it's just a lot. And again, I'm going to be real. Like I really try to avoid stuff about me, which call it hypocritical or whatever, I follow whatever, and I also try to avoid stuff about this because I feel like I've said my piece. I feel like I've made peace. I haven't made peace with it. I feel extreme guilt and anxiety over it, which is something that's never happened. You guys know my menstrual cycles are off, and I haven't, I did an HSG test before all this at the beginning of June. And last time I did that, I was able to conceive right away. It's been 3 cycles now, and I have not, and my hormones are out of whack, my menstrual cycle's off. So everything is very like, obviously I'm very, very like stressed and anxious, which is something that I'm really trying hard to get out of and like just keep myself busy. So I really try not to even pay attention to this stuff. However, like I am glad that it was presented to me in this way, and I'm like thankful. So like in all sincerity, and I mean this because Swoop is another one who's clear. It's like, Trisha has done stuff that I don't agree with. She does that disclaimer, which I totally get everyone should do. But not, I thank you truly for getting those photos taken down from Twitter. I really thought it was Johnny who took them down. As he said, he took them down because they served their purpose, was his quote. But Swoop was in her video said after 20 minutes, she had to like convince him to take it down. And in the video, Johnny was very much like, well, he refers to me as an untouchable public figure, so it was fine. He had tweeted about me this June saying, Colleen, she's doing a podcast with a porn star. What did she expect? Which I'm not a porn star. I've done sex work. I still have sex work available, but I'm not a porn star. Even if I was a porn star, it really doesn't justify these things. I think porn stars are like really, they fall victim a lot to photos like this being used inappropriately, criminally. It's a really bad stigma. It's something that we get blamed for. And it's, like just hearing the almost sort of like, because he presented it as like, I was sent these unsolicited, I didn't want these, but then to hear about him like searching for these with the intent to obviously make fun of me, there's no other reason. I mean, he said I was on a watch list. Like this stuff, the more stuff that comes out, like I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do with myself sometimes, because again, it brings up this guilt of being a sex worker. It brings up this guilt that I was like friends and like talking to and like supporting this person who was like really a monster when it comes to this stuff. You know, I go back and forth with like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to feed into it, but it's not drama. And I think people take this like lightly, which I said before, this isn't something to take lightly. This is very serious. This is someone in a power position, like doing this to minor and just feeling like it's okay, you know, like, well, they were jokes, they were this, but even if that's how you felt at the time or still feel, like there's a very real 16-year-old girl who feels traumatized by this. Rightfully so. You're 16, you don't know. I was 16, I didn't know. I was, you know, trying to get the attention of any celebrity any way I could. And of course now you're just like, oh, that was weird, that wasn't appropriate, that was that. And there's no acknowledgement of that. It's like, it's just a lot. And then the more I hear about this like watch list, this obsession, I'm just like, I don't know how to process it. I don't know how to process it. I don't know how to deal with like the guilt of it. I don't know what to do to make it better. There's very real people hurting. It's a very real situation. Part of me is like, I don't want to talk about it and keep it going. But at the same time, it's something that, you know, this shouldn't be a slap on the wrist. Everything's okay. This is a very serious thing. And you guys, I'm very anti-cancel culture, but this is not cancel culture. You know, someone making mistakes in their past or doing something silly, stupid in their past. You know, I don't think they should be canceled for the rest of their life, but this is something that's very serious, not that far in the past, a repeated pattern of behavior. So again, back to the Swoop thing, you know, thank you, Swoop, for getting those pictures taken down because, you know, I think Johnny said something along the lines of like, you know, I thought that would make her feel better or something, that it's like out there. And Swoop was like, how do you think that's helping her? It's not helping me, you know, at all. There's plenty of ways to get a hold of me. Adam McIntyre sent an email to my business email, which does not go to me, but it was forwarded to me. He could verify that I replied from a different email. It was forwarded. I did not reply from that email. I don't have access to that email. Someone else checks that email for me. But there's plenty of ways to get that message to me that like I would be able to see, and the person will forward to me. Person checks my emails, forwards me anything that's obviously something like this that's like flagged, that's serious, that needs my attention. I think it was in Swoop's video, unless she was like showing a clip of someone else's video, but I think it was Swoop's video, the way she censored it, which was, you know, a big blurb and you could just see, and you could, you know, there's definitely ways to have censored it. And it is humiliating. I think there's people who, like, you know, and I try to be really strong, and you have to be doing this for so long that it's like, well, it's Trish, she's used to it. Or I've seen the argument that I post these things myself, and so it's fine. It's like, one, I do this a lot and people think it's like a weird thing that I do, but I post and delete a lot because, you know, this is my work. This is my line of work. I'm not necessarily ashamed of it. It's something I'm hopefully going to get away from in the future. So I post to promote. This is my income. This is my work. I post to promote, and it's definitely not in the light that people are sharing these photos. Like there's screenshots of me, and like, it's not flattering or whatever. The ones I post are very picked, but I can post those. Anyone else can't. And I think that's another stigmatism, but that's a stigma, bad stigma. But now I can see that those photos were posted with certainty to humiliate me, to force me into talking, because he was so upset that I wasn't saying anything, that I wasn't talking, that this forced me to talk. I think he mentioned it in another interview too. I don't know where I saw it, like TikTok or whatever. It was in another interview where it was like, well, she wasn't saying anything. So I'm like, this will get her to talk. So to me, that's just this whole other level of just, of course it was to humiliate me. Of course the pictures are to body shame. He was like, oh no, I didn't send the pictures to body shame. Oh, well, one time. There's no other reason to send that. The way he talks about my photos being like she was butt naked with a big grin on her face. Like, it's just, that is manipulative. That is gross. That is disgusting. That is a form of just forcing someone, of humiliating them, all of the above, and that he wasn't going to take it down without Swoop. And he even said, I respect Swoop. He's like, I respect you. So like I think maybe I'll take it down. So I guess he took down all but one. So like truly, as far as people have gone to, I don't want to use the word defend, but like, I guess in this situation, like, I guess defend in this situation, you know, the Swoop has definitely done a lot more than she needed to, because I do think that this story should focus on like a lot of other people. I think because I have like, you know, I've been around for so long, and like, you know, I have like this name or whatever, it just ties me to the story. But I don't love that like there's just more people being tied to the story, including Swoop. And I felt for her too. I feel like this just becomes this like really dark, tangled web. And it's just like, I think it's like triggering and traumatizing for like a lot of people. Um, it becomes something a lot of people are like, this is gossip, or like, who cares about this? Oh, they're being so hard. Oh, there were some missteps by Colleen. So what? It's like, this is like very, very serious and traumatizing events, like talking about anything sexual, tampons, anything like that with minors, talking about your divorce, talking about heavy adult issues with children, in these group texts is a big issue. This is something that needs to be brought to light, because I think that I know when we talk about this stuff, like it becomes not okay. There was a period of time when it was okay to date a 14-year-old, a 16-year-old, and Hollywood was like, that's totally fine. And now people are like, no, that's like not okay actually, and here's why. And I think it's something that needs to be talked about, especially with the age of social media influencers and the closeness people have to interacting with fans. And it's just this weird dynamic and power position. Ultimately, like, it just needs to be talked about more. So it's a lot to process. It's there's nothing to take away from like what Colleen was doing with my photos. She again was the one in power. I did feel forced to talk about it then. I felt that was my way of just acknowledging it, as I do with any sort of public humiliation or shame. I acknowledge things right away. I don't know, for better or worse. Some people say not to acknowledge it at all, but that's just how I handle things in situations. This video, I do not feel forced to make at all. Like I just felt compelled to, and that I'm grateful for Swoop and that those photos were taken down, because when it's used in that way, the people who dislike me have more ammunition to embarrass and humiliate me, and those things can get twisted. And none of it is good. None of it feels good. All of it feels bad. To all the minors affected by Colleen and the jokes, according to her, that were made, and the inappropriate conversations, like I really am sorry. This is something that is like so awful and so disgusting, and I see it happen not just with this situation, with other influencers who truly are like engaging and conversing with people that are underage, even if they're 17, almost 18, all this stuff like that, like that just get a pass. And I don't understand, because this is territory that's like affecting children. And I feel there's one thing everyone agrees on: prisoners in prison, don't mess with children. If you mess with children, like that's the ultimate, right? And to me, I know that 17 a magic 18, you're like automatically, I don't even believe that. I think like 18, 19, if you're still talking to a teenager when you're in your 30s, I think it's 40s, whatever, I think there's still something wrong with you. There is something wrong with you. You don't need to be, there's nothing you have in common with that person, nor is there anything you need to do with that person if they're 18, 19. So I don't think it's this magic number. It's this magic number legally, but I don't think it's this magic number. And I think if you're talking to a teenager of any capacity in this light, it's like it's weird, and it's beyond weird. There's something dark there. So the Swoop video is 4 hours long, and it's it's just a part of her series. And I know she said she had a lot of her own mental health struggles with this. So it's another reason I really try not to get involved too deep with stuff. On our podcast, when we try to talk about stuff that's just like trending, and I also try to talk about it, anything anymore. I think in the past I've done gossip or drama, I feel like I kind of have this like no holds barred attitude. It's like, well, public figures, that's what and I think I said that. It's like, it's public figure, deal with it. And I think to some extent that is true, but I try now, to look at it with mom gloves, with gentle gloves, with gloves that are like, okay, was this with now loving gloves, because I think I had so much hate for myself and bitterness towards others that I was looking at it from like a hateful place. So now I try to look at the full picture. And even if someone is like terribly, everyone can agree, is like, oof, Ariana, I guess he was married with a baby, I still try to like look at it as like, well, maybe they were divorced, or maybe there's, I try to look at it in some sort of like rose-colored glasses the best of my ability, because I do think everyone like makes mistakes and messes up and has their own issues and, you know, all that stuff like that. But I think this is something that's just like not forgiven, should not just go away, should not just be pushed aside as like jokes or like, you know, desperate or I'm a loser or whatever. It's like, no, this was like, there's something wrong with you, like get help. And I mean that like out of love as well, because there's some sicknesses and you can't hurt people with those. You have to like get yourself better. And there's hurting people and then there's hurting children. And I think hurting children is just an absolute no-go. So there's that. And yeah, I think this is the last of my involvement. There was like a little section about me in this. So I did want to just share my gratitude for the way that it was handled, because, you know, the reason I get scared to speak out, period, is because then as it happens is, well, Trish did this, this, and this, or well, Trish is an awful person, or Trish did this, or she posted herself, or this, you know, so it's just a little like scary for me to talk about anything, because I know no matter what, everything else gets like, you know, dragged up again. And it's like, well, and that's always happened. Earlier this year, I made videos of, or I made a video about people sharing my content on Reddit, my adult content, and not only like stealing it, body shaming it, distorting it, but yeah, like the theft, which is the reason I did a whole documentary about Reddit, because I'm like, how is this okay? Stuff being taken from the private messages that were behind a paywall, and it's also behind an age wall on OnlyFans, but also to be used to degrade and humiliate me as well, which is what I'm very clear now. That's what Johnny was doing, was to humiliate me, force me to talk about something that I wasn't necessarily a part of or didn't feel comfortable or safe talking about. I think it's one thing I'll just keep talking about, because I think it's something to raise awareness for. Because again, as a sex worker, we already have a bad stigma attached to us, as if we are these people doing it, when it's actually other people using our work most of the time to traumatize people. And again, like I said, not to anything to Adam, but it's like he might be like the best person in the world. I don't know, because I don't watch the content to the extent of that. But I'm sure he has, maybe he doesn't even realize it, but there is some trauma, because he seems very well spoken in this Swoop video. So he's very composed. So, you know, maybe he is mature enough to like realize what has happened and processing it. And like, he has a good support system, it seems, with his family. But I know for me at 35, I'm still realizing stuff that I've obviously never talked about publicly, but stuff from my childhood. And I'm like, wow, that actually affected me in a very severe way. And it's like this trauma that I didn't know I had. At the Dr. Drew episode, I was like, I went back and forth with like, is it trauma, is it not? Because I'm like, well, you know, at the time it was fun. I was engaged in it. Why? It wasn't but then I'm like, oh, that wasn't okay. And it's at 35, I'm still processing stuff. I'm like, that wasn't okay. There are reasons why I've developed the way I did. And it's like now just trying to understand those reasons and unlearn it and try and correct my behavioral patterns, which is like not reacting so quickly. And a lot of people, and thank you, but I don't even mean it to come out, like say, oh, Trish is very like calm and like collected. And honestly, like for me, it's not reacting right away. My issues in the past was I would react so quickly, and watching the Swoop video initially, I wanted to react so quickly. I was so angry for a number of reasons. I was so angry that so many people are still hurting from this and it's just being brushed over. I was so angry, obviously, about my situation. I was so angry about so many things that were brought up in there, or brought to light rather. And it was like, I was crying, I was sobbing, and it's like, you know, if I sat here crying and sobbing, does that get through more to people? No, you know, it's like, I think trying to figure out what I want to say and what's the takeaway from this is more important than just my feelings being hurt, me screaming and, you know, showing a trauma response, you know. And I think that's why people like Soup's videos. I think she holds herself well, doesn't have a bias, doesn't have like hatred. She doesn't come from a place of hate or bitterness. And for me, I still work on that because I have a personality disorder and behavioral issues. You know, it's something that I have to work on because I do get angry still. It's just how I deal with that anger, how I channel that, how I bring myself down from that. And it's something I worked on. It's taken years. It's been years now of me working on this, probably almost 2 years of fully putting in work. So just now going back to therapy and just trying to deal with guilt of all types has been a lot. I make these videos to like address a point, to raise awareness. But also, you know, I am proud of the work that I put in and the positive reinforcement of people, you know, just like responding well to it. Something I did not expect. I was very nervous putting out any video that I talk about. Like I said, of course, there's backlash, of course, but the positive reinforcements of just being able to collect myself and talk is tremendous. The reactions I get this way is way more positive than, you know, me just wanting to show how angry and upset I am and just show how much it affects me. But I think it's better to articulate these things, and I think Swoop does a great job of that. That's it. I wanna keep it fun, you know, I wanna keep it moving, but I support anyone who you know, wants to continue to talk about this. I also know it can be very draining and very tiring. So when people kind of fall off from it as well, I respect that as well, including myself. Sometimes you just need time away because it can be a lot. You get sucked into this spiral. And hey guys, that is it here. It is now almost 9 a.m. and there is no rain, no sign of rain yet. So let's hope this hurricane passes safely to people in Vegas, Mexico. Like, I hope that you guys are safe as well and able to recover quickly from this hurricane, because it is scary, isn't it? We're blessed here in California. We don't have this too much, but it is gray outside. So let me just knock on wood right there. Okay, thank you guys for listening, and thank you again, Swoop. If you guys want to go check out her video, it's very well done, and I appreciate so much the amount of research and time she spends on these videos. And like, there are people who definitely need to be held accountable, some very minor things, some more serious things. I myself have been held, you know, accountable in the past where it's only helped me grow. But this one is a very, very serious issue, and it should be always handled with like delicate gloves and or well-informed gloves. And I think she does a really good job with that. And I think you don't see that a lot just on YouTube in general. Alright guys, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. I really didn't know if I was going to make this video today. I posted a Starbucks video earlier because I was just like, let me just keep it moving, talk about it on the podcast or something, but it felt more, I don't know, I was thinking of it as just very quick thank you. It became this like whole thing. So there's that. Alright, bye guys.